Okay, guys, 8 p.m.
Congratulations.
We're going to start the meeting for January 21st. This is our first meeting of the year for the ARB. ARB number 1, 2019, the Paris Cafe Squab Lane is being postponed until February. So we're going to move over to ARB number 2. There's a typo on our agendas, FYI. It says 1, but it's number 2. Darien Place LLC at 1077 Boston Post Road. Number 2. Sorry. All right, so take that away. You guys know the drill, but especially since we're being recorded, introduce yourselves and give us an
The whole
overview of the
drill.
project. Yes.
Good evening, I'm Robert Maslin, the attorney for the applicant here. Let me introduce everybody else. John Vaccaro, J-O-N.
Yep.
And Joe Vaccaro are principals of the LLC, Darien Place LLC. Jim and James Scatino, this is like family night. Jim and James Scatino, the architects.
Did you bring your son with you?
No, no, he's doing whatever activities and he's having a ball. Okay, what's going on here is the back of the old theater building. All right, where is that picture? This. So this won't look like this if you approve what we're doing and everybody else is okay. This is an old building. The whole thing used to be the theater way back when. I saw the Sting there in like 1973 or so. But that was when it was a full theater. And then since then, the building has kind of shifted from all theater to gradually less theater and more other uses. Right, Dave? I mean, that goes back many years. So now there's a restaurant, Cafe Nero in the front. There's a Verizon store in the front. And then there's a spa upstairs, and there is little theater left, but it's very little and it's very unsuccessful financially, so it just can't survive. I don't think it's paying rent. I don't think it's paid rent in quite a while. It's just not viable anymore. So John and Joe put their heads together, purchased the property from the previous owner, and the architects have come up with a plan to reconfigure the back of the building so that you'll have retail facing the parking lot instead of this. And this is consistent with the overall long-range plan of having a pedestrian way from the train station out to the sports shop. Right now you have the train station, you have parking at the back of the bank, you have a couple of other businesses along the way. Now you'll have some retail here, and then you make your way to the Darien Sports Shop. So little by little, these things happen over time, and I know it's been a long time in the making, but this is just another piece. So who wants to do this? You want to talk about the architecture? You want Jim and James to?
Before we start with the architectural renderings, I just want to know if anybody's got any questions of what Rob laid out as the plan.
I have a planning question. I have a planning question, not an
Okay.
architecture question.
Okay.
I just wondered if you've considered that with David Genevieve's project, in comes a lot of apartments, a lot of new residents, restaurants, and do you think, in terms of planning, you are going to soon have a concentration of residents who might enjoy a theater more so than more retail? I mean, what's coming on board is a lot of retail and restaurants, and so it's just a planning question. I feel somewhat disappointed that something like an activity is being removed from the downtown other than restaurants and shops. So I just thought I'd...
Yeah.
Wait, John, can I say one thing also to the board? I know it's kind of like the chicken and the egg here, like what the function versus architecture. Like the architecture is driven by the function of these buildings. But I want to remind us that like this is an important question because I think this dictates kind of what the building is and what its use is going to be.
Totally.
But I also remember that we are not here to like, you know, as far as what the functionality of the building is in the run, like how it lends to how we view it architecturally, but that is not our call to go down that rabbit hole. So we've talked about this before. I just want to make sure that we kind of stay on point when we discuss the building and what its purpose is and what its functionality is going to be as it lends to architecture.
So, just to be clear on one thing, I'm a resident of the town too, and lived here for almost 40 years. And so I care about what's in town quite a bit. We have a couple other projects we've done in town. 1950 Post Road, 1958 Post Road, where Roost is, and Julia's, and Double Exposure, and Pure Bar, and the bicycle store and whatnot. And the other end of town used to be the old sewing room. We did that. We presented to you all in the past on that. But to more directly answer your question, what's happened in the theater business, we spent a lot of time studying this before we came to the conclusion we're at, is there's a massive amount of obsolescence. And it's so many different factors, but some of them we would think are pretty obvious, like streaming. Streaming is a factor, and so the producers are basically putting out movies, large quantities, but not the same quality. So the theaters aren't really getting the quality they used to get. Our little theater is obsolete in so many different ways. One is a very, very small theater. The actual footprint on the ground floor is only like 4,300 square feet. It's just not that big. And then it has the upstairs for the projection room and the staircase going up. So, it's measured at more space than that, but you'll see it in the plans here. The footprint is only 4,300 square feet. So, when you think about, okay, so you got all the big guys coming out with streaming, Disney, Netflix, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You can buy a big screen TV for $1,000 and put it in your house, okay? And so that's part of the issue. The other part of the issue is that we don't really have the format. This theater looks like hell. And we don't really have the format like the bigger screens, the multiplexes with the food and everything else. And even they're struggling a bit. Okay, so you basically, I asked our operator, who's been operating it since day one when it reopened. It was under United Artists, went through the whole bankruptcy, and the Collinses and Tom Golden bought the property and reopened the theater. And then there was a period of time where it was just in the late 80s and whatnot. I don't know if you all remember this, or Dave will remember. It was just shut down for I don't know how many years. So it finally got reopened. Anyway, the point being is that I asked, well, since he's been there for day one, since it reopened in 2003. And I said, what's the attendance like today versus 5 years ago? Down 80%. So the town really doesn't use it, okay? And so then we did some more checking. We said, what theaters have closed in our area? And I've got a little handout for you. I can show you the number of theaters around us that are closed. Then, a really interesting example is what happened in New Canaan. So what happened in New Canaan is it was going to close, and the town said, well, no, we don't want that. So the town went in and they rented the space, and they found an operator, and they stabilized and subsidized the operator, and the theater's losing money hand over fist. It's suffering from a lot of red ink. And they want out. So they have Bowtie in there. It has Bowtie in Norwalk and a couple different places. Bowtie says, well, we're not taking this, right? So they're kind of stuck. And do I agree that we should have, for the sake of the community, have a place to go to see movies? Yes. But does it have to be in that location? Probably not. We should be using a facility like the town hall, where we have a beautiful auditorium, or the library, we have a beautiful auditorium. This operator would be happy to help and consult the town, to have the town basically take over the movie situation in town. Our kids could go to those public areas, and so that would be a solution, right? Mm-hmm. But to basically think about it in the private sector, it just doesn't work.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, and John, along that thought, just to finalize, and even if you put money into this part of your side, you said, look, we're going to redo this theater with souped up seats and beautiful inside, even if you guys put that investment in, what's the logic to it?
Well, there's one that opened in Dobbs Ferry, and you can look at it up online. It's gorgeous, okay? It opened and it closed. I don't even know if it was open a year. But here's you can pass these around. just to give you some background. I mean, like Newtown actually does movies at the town hall. They've been doing it for, I don't know, probably 30, 40 years. I don't know who anybody live, from that part of the world, but and it's for the community, and they run movies Friday, Saturday nights. I'm not sure what else other nights they run them. So there's precedent for it. So that's a little bit about it. The other thing I thought you'd get a kick out of is, again, this property is an old property. It's probably doesn't have a plaque or anything, but it's built in roughly around 1925 or so. And here's some pictures from the old days. I got these actually from Planning and Zoning Office, from Jeremy Ginsburg. And you're welcome to take a look at them and pass them around. But so that's, the best I can in terms of answering the question.
Oh,
but
thank you.
it's, something we thought about. And frankly, there isn't, even if we redid it, there isn't an operator that'll take it over because it's too small. They can't make any money. The producers get 65 cents of every dollar of a ticket sale. So that leaves the operator with 35 cents to basically run it, pay the rent, and pay their people, and whatever. Maybe they make some money on popcorn, I guess. But the economics of the business is completely turned inside out.
Yeah.
So,
You can tell by all the closures too.
Yeah.
so
Interesting.
Now you go to theaters and they have a bar.
Right.
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 But even that, again, our operator, his name is Peter Vivian, and again, he's been working this for 16, 17 years. He will tell you that generally people in Darien, they might go to that type of a theater where it's got the bar and the food and everything else, but husband and wife, let's say, forget about the children for a minute, they go to a movie, they're not going to really eat there. They're going to go to the movie and then they're going to go out for dinner someplace, right? So he said, even if you had it in town, it wouldn't be that successful. Maybe it would work for the kids, but it's not going to work necessarily for the adults.
I can't imagine having a drink and staying awake through the movie.
Depends on the movie.
That's true. That's true. I'd
So,
be hard pressed.
Okay, well,
Does that answer your question?
Yes.
so,
In fact, one other thing, as you talked about, the last thing about like what you kind of read out, I think probably all the board's thinking about the same idea is how are you then, not that we get in the outside, but that as it will affect the inside, it will affect the outside. Are you guys creating the inside to be a multifunctional space right now, or keeping it open until you kind of see what kind of residents and what kind of interest is there, or how are you handling that? Since
Well-
there is a good point about keeping some sort of interactive, there's already tenants that are gonna be there, like.
well, what we've done historically is we've tried to bring different tenants to town. So we knew we didn't have a bicycle store, so we brought a bicycle store to town. Pedal and Pump's been closed for probably, 8-10 years at this point, and we brought in a bicycle store that was very successful. On that end of town by St. John's and church and whatnot, there wasn't really much in the way of regular way food available during the day. There's a couple delis around, whatever. And so we brought in Roost, and that's a smashing success. As we know, Frederick's closed, Frederick's hairdresser closed, and Julia opened, and the people that were there before retired, but we were happy to get them because we needed another beauty salon in town. Pure Bar was a relocation, Double Exposure was a relocation within town. The other end of town, which is where 364 Post Road is, down by Duchess and Rory's and whatnot. We brought in Orange Theory as a fitness center, and we're bringing in Pasta Vita there, which is a operation that's only in Connecticut right now. They have about 5 locations, but it's all gourmet food takeout, pre-packaged. It's actually a pretty cool concept. So we're looking for the right tenants for that part of town. I do think that what Bob described as opening up retail from the sports shop all the way to the train station, I think it creates a nice complement and balance to the other side of the street. I believe Corbin will get built. It's going to take a number of years for it to be built. I think it's a great addition to the town. But it will create, again, some sort of a balance between one side of the street to the other side of the street. If it didn't get built, this still works. And again, it's not adding a lot of retail. It's only 4,300 square feet. So we would look to find tenants that complement the area that are a little different than what's there, that would be accretive to the neighborhood. And if we can find something for kids, we're gonna try to do that. Not so easy to figure out. The only thing we can figure out is some sort of computer coding, thing or whatever, because it seemed like to spend a lot of time on that, so.
Awesome.
Okay.
So it takes care of the planning.
Are there offices and apartments also scheduled to be here, just retail?
Well, the upstairs,
I haven't-
the building waiting cake's up, so the upstairs is fairly small. It's only like 3,600 square feet.
Okay.
We're planning on putting in 4 studio apartments in that, so we'll create a second floor, mezzanine level. The floor to ceiling in the theater are about 24 feet, so it's pretty easy to put a mezzanine level in. And again, that'll be a price point that isn't readily available in town. It's, an enlarged studio would be roughly $2,200 a month kind of thing. You can't find that in town.
No.
It doesn't exist. We have one studio in one of our buildings now, and there was like a waiting list to get it. And then think about the type of person that would be there. There'll be 2 blocks from the train station, so it might be something nice for some young people that want to test out Darien if they're coming out of the city.
I saw one of your apartments over Roost that
Yeah.
were very nice. It was
Thank you.
very nicely done.
That was, I won't take credit for it, it's actually my wife.
Oh,
Did
well,
all that.
you did a good job.
So,
The
Yes.
south facade is staying as is?
yes. We've been contemplating whether there's any benefit to some sort of sandblasting or some sort of cleaning it, but.
I'm sure you guys will get to it, just an
Yeah.
overall.
So, but
theme,
no,
just wanna check that.
we walked the property with Liz at one point, and she had something on one of the sides that we weren't really gonna touch, and we made some modifications to that side to make it look a little bit more tasteful, so.
Right, the eastern side.
Exactly.
We've addressed with, Colin came in, remember when we did some renovations, there's the CS 60 or something on the east side of the building?
Yes.
Next to
Cafe Nero.
Next to Cafe Nero, yeah, and we were talking about how that side is kind of like an afterthought.
Yeah.
It was kind of a bummer to us, but anyways, not done.
So,
Okay, who's,
James can start.
Well, thank you, John, for talking us through the functionality. I think that helps us kind of get a better understanding of your thought process and why it's coming together as it is.
Yeah, here's just some photos of the, actually, what's the back
That's the
there
name.
it was right here.
No, this is the existing building. We got some partials of that east
Oh,
side, CSD
yes,
50
that's the side we're
over
talking
there.
about.
It's the egress door.
Could you hold it up?
Oh, sure.
So we last talked about it with Dwight, I believe, right? And we had reworked this door set
Yes.
to be more balanced, but then the rest of the siding was still to be left.
Yeah, I mean, other than the program elements, I think what we're trying to do with the rear portion of the building is just kind of extend it towards the back, basically, and activate that south elevation and wrap it around the corner. I could show you.
closed.
One of the things, obviously, this is the existing rear elevation, north elevation. One of the things, in order to break up that massive brick facade, we're kind of extending the storefronts along the base. And then Posh kind of has a vertical element, and we're kind of playing off that with the central section in the back there. This is it's a 2-foot bump out along the back. That's really the only footprint change.
That's just an architectural detail.
Yeah, it's just an architectural element, just in the same way that these are about a foot bump out, these storefronts.
Could you walk us through the design and the materials that you're proposing?
Yeah, let's see.
If you want the board, James,
This is a material board. And a lot of what we're doing, again, is kind of drawing on what's there already. We have kind of the red range brick, and we're preserving that, this section. We're popping in some new windows here for the residential units. And we're talking about double hung or casement windows. Right now, there's some existing double hung windows on the building.
Jim, to back up, you guys are, Jim, right?
Yeah, I go by James, he
Oh,
goes by
you're
Jim.
James, okay. You guys are reworking the northern side and the northern and the partial western? side?
Yeah, the rear portion of the building, north, east, and west.
Okay.
Just
So these
the
are west,
rear,
okay,
yeah.
okay.
And I can show you the 2D elevations.
Even if you start
illustrated
at the
there.
top though, this fascia board,
Yeah.
we're increasing it, James, by what,
Yeah.
like a foot and a half?
Yeah, right now, it's kind of got a weak entablature cornice here, and we're like doubling the size of it. And we looked it around, you know, there's other buildings that have a kind of a similar,
Just to give it relief.
yeah, well, just to give it some architectural detail.
The eyebrows on the windows?
The window heads, the existing, like, front half of the building has these precast window heads that you can kind of see in that. And we want to put those to match on the existing openings and on these new windows on the back.
Remember, there's a perimeter of windows around the top of the theater.
Yeah.
So we're going to use all those windows. We're going to have to make them a little bit longer, but not taller. But the idea is to put that window head on all those windows.
You got some existing.
These are neighboring,
All four
you know,
facades
these are,
except for the Boston poster facade.
Right.
these are just the rear faces of
Right.
adjacent buildings, just, you know, Brooks Brothers, they got that heavy entablature there. You bring the awnings around the back. We're proposing copper awnings. The sports shop kind of has some copper elements. One of the things, can I see this, James?
Sure.
Just existing. So these are pictures of the existing building. These are those openings that we have right now, and there's no window heads on them. And we can actually make them a little taller. So we're gonna try and make them a little taller and put those precast window heads on so that they'll kind of match what we have going. This is the entablature, it's very, you know, thin up there, just in proportion, kind of like the front, just build it up a little bit more.
What about the little corbels or brackets along the eave that's along the whole south facade?
Well, there's a break in the roof, you can kind of see it here. So the front building, I don't think we have to match it exactly because it's a different scale. You know, we can transition and take cues from the front. But we were going to do something a little simpler, you know, more. See, this in the front has more of that detail, but as you go around the side, it becomes a little simpler. We were going to kind of stay with that kind of architecture.
I mean, I like your design, it seems like it's slightly disjointed from the south facade, you know, based on kind of some of those little
Yeah.
architectural features.
It's almost like they were built at different points in time, but you can't, it's hard to tell.
What's that, the sides got built out when they repurposed it from the theater originally.
Could you describe why you elected to detail the storefront differently from, I'm on this corner here. So you've got very small bulkheads running along this facade, and then it bumps up with a different window fenestration. Is that? what
Those
you
are
did?
actually the existing windows on the side. You know, one of the things we're talking about is we can replace those two and match the transoms within. We're basically doing the same height of glass. It's about a 10-foot glass line. And along the back, those are all new. And then on that side, we just left the existing.
So these are fixed panels without a bulkhead. We like to see bulkheads.
I mean, like a little,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, one of the things we did, actually, we created a little more space.
Well, this is different than my drawing. Your drawing is different than my drawing. So these run straight to the ground. These-
Yeah, no, I was just, one
Oh,
thing we
I
did
see.
since then is
Yeah,
we just
okay.
increased the
Yeah.
panel, you know, at the
That's
bottom
nice.
of
That's
it,
better,
just to
yeah.
give it. It's something that we would have done, I think we got it in, we're trying to make the submission, but we like it like 14 inches of,
Yeah.
you know, panel there.
Yeah,
Um,
that's very nice.
Can you speak to the number of doors and storefronts?
Yeah.
So I see that we have, you know, the proposed 2 tenants and then 4 discrete storefronts, and sort of what's the game plan on?
Well, I think what we basically do is it's a placeholder for a door. So not knowing whether it's 1 tenant or 2 or 3, we just show it as could be in any of them. Same with the signage, you know, we're not gonna have 8 signs or whatever we have. But I think the idea that we've been talking about is most likely it'll be 2 tenants, bless you. And maybe it would be a door and then just window in the center. There's Posh is over here, it's not kind of drawn in, and there's a little chimney element here. One of the things on the second floor, we have a little pop-out kind of bulkhead for the egress stair. And so we kind of treated that in similar, in a similar manner as that bump out, you know, which is for some mechanical equipment. One of the things that lets us do is right now you have to climb up, you have to get roof access, you climb up this ladder and then another ladder up there. When we add that, you'll be able to access the roof from that section. So we'd eliminate that ladder. Obviously the trash is going away, being relocated. And you know, John has been talking about we're gonna expand the sidewalk on both the north and the east side.
Yeah, the sidewalk on the north side will be roughly 10 feet. With that little bump out, we'll lose 2 feet. And that'll, right now, we think the hardscapes is still gonna match all the red brick around the perimeter. We're gonna expand by a couple feet the courtyard on the westerly side, the Stanford side, and by repositioning some of the parking over there. We're also gonna be adding parking. We think as many as eight parking places. So,
Is that something that will be worked through with the partners in the shared parking agreement?
yes.
Yes.
Just going back to the stair enclosure, I sort of struggle with the white stair enclosure of, you know, is that, I see how it relates to the higher sort of posh, you know, portion on the opposite side, but, you know, at the end of the day, it's not something with any visibility, it's not, you know, a retail, or it's something that should be background, and I worry that having a white rectangle up there makes it foreground, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah.
Um,
Well, we can certainly look at color and material. One of the things,
So the board, where's that?
this,
Turn the board over so.
turn,
Yeah, so you can see what she's talking about, the,
It's on the right side.
oh,
yeah, okay, there you go. Oh,
Would that, from the residential hallway, would that roof be accessible to residents as a terrace?
it's a little tricky,
No.
the.
Yeah, I
it's-
just
it's-
wasn't sure if that
There's
was.
mechanical equipment up there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I really kind of don't want the liability.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
so, no.
Is there any reason to have windows in that enclosure, that's a stair? Or does it need to be blocked out like that.
It can have it can have an opening. It can have windows in it. We could add windows.
Maybe that might be nice.
I think we did it on 1950, didn't we, John?
Yeah, yeah. The other thing, just, you didn't mention it, but we're intending on replacing all the gutters with copper and copper downspouts.
Nice.
Yeah, the front has copper downspouts and match that.
The back doesn't, the back is like white aluminum.
Do you have a planting plan? And a lighting plan?
That's part of the submission for the planning and zoning. We're working on the lighting plan. First of all, part of what the architects have done is they're intending on replacing a lot of the light fixtures that attach to the building. And you probably have something to show them on that. And then there's one coach lamp that looks horrible, but the electricity's there, so we're planning on putting a coach lamp in that somewhat models like, I don't know if you're familiar with the terminology, the model block in Darien. Okay, so it'll look kind of like the lamppost that you see on the post road, but it'll probably be a little bit smaller in scale. It won't be as, as large. But we're replacing one right where the existing theater is, and then we're going to put two more kind of like here, it may be on here, kind of right around here and here. And then when I started looking at the parking lot lights, they're so beat up looking, I'm not even sure they're LED, and we might just, for our little portion of the shared parking arrangement, we might just replace those as well. So we're kind of looking at that right now.
It's a
But
very
we have to
dark
do a
lot.
photometric study and whatnot too,
Yeah.
to make sure everything works.
There's dirt back there.
It's very dark back there.
It's dark back there. It's got to be
From a safety
safety perspective, exactly.
And then, is there a plan that has your tree pits in the sidewalk?
There will be. Since there's so much hardscape, one of the things that I've been talking to the landscape person about is maybe putting in sort of some big pots, the really enormous ones, that you could actually have flowers and trees and stuff coming
They're
in.
not, I'm a landscape architect, those technically don't have would be
Real big.
massive, it would take over your sidewalk.
Yeah. Well, again, we're expanding the sidewalk on the back and on the west side. But they're still not huge when you think about it. The larger sidewalk is on the easterly side.
Right.
All that red brick is pretty much our property versus the property next door.
I think
And
you have
then-
Zelkovas there. I believe those are Zelkovas trees.
Okay.
Yeah, the west side, we're expanding at about 4 or 5 feet. It'll be almost 15 feet.
Be a little bit less, something's changed, but.
So you
close to
have
that.
two
And then-
trees?
There's two there, but they look.
They're not doing, I think those are
They're not
oaks.
doing
They're
very
not
well.
doing very well.
No, I mean, they need to be replaced.
There's also a large tree in the back of the building right across from where the ticket office currently is, that's not doing so well, that needs to be addressed as well.
So, do you have a copy of this?
That's in the package.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
They have
So
the
we're-
color one too.
There's this little triangle area here that we thought would be a nice public space. Now, there's, that little triangle there is where the transformer is today. And the idea is try to relocate that transformer over here. And this is Grove Street, and right now you kind of come zooming in. The idea is to put that bump there to slow it down. So the site engineer is working on all this. But this would add parking. We lose 2 parking places here to moving the trash bins. But we create parking here. And then the parking today comes in, this is the Bankwell building here, this is the Kennedy's here, and you can pull in this way today. The idea now is to zoom around, park around, and park this way and this way. That created this extra space here so that we could widen the, you know, again, make it very pedestrian friendly and sort of have this patio effect. That's the best way to describe it.
Is it this side, on the right-hand side, east side, or those parking areas always seem to be restricted for Bankwell and you never find a place there? Would those be restricted over there as well?
No, we're intending on making it pretty wide open. What we've done, just since we've taken over the property, is about 2 weeks ago, we posted a security guard from 6 o'clock in the morning till 10, and to chase out commuter parking. And there's just a lot of people that park that don't belong there. So we've now increased the parking by kicking, it's roughly about 25 cars a day.
Oh.
And so we've warned everybody, and starting tomorrow, we're actually gonna put stickers on cars that have been warned and keep parking there.
And then they take the train?
Yep. Some of them are commuters.
Really?
Some of them work on Grove Street. Grove Street's really the wrong, it's,
Brook.
right. It's across the street from the Sugar Bowl. It's where a lot of them work. And unfortunately, they don't have a place to park. So, but there is parking, you just have to walk. So.
And sorry, is there residential parking for the tenants?
Yeah, but the tenants, it's, the code is one parking place per bedroom, and they're only gonna be 4.
But do they have designated, like I'm going grocery shopping?
We probably will designate 4 parking places, where am I at? Over here. Because their residential interest is here, so we would designate 4 over there. Again, if you look at, we're having a parking study done now, but if you look at adding this amount of square footage versus what a theater would take, that's really up to the parking engineers that come up with their study and whatnot.
Are there variances involved in this?
No,
Zoning
that's
variances,
right.
no.
But there is a requirement, because we're repurposing the space so planning and zoning does need to see it and approve it. David's more of an expert on this than I am.
If I knew what the planning and zoning commission would do, we wouldn't have those meetings, so we'll see. I mean, because the original shared parking agreement was based on the movie theater use, weekends and evenings, and the other retail business uses during the daytimes generally.
Yeah.
So this is gonna be different than what has been.
Yeah, I mean, but it's kind of hard to imagine that 4,300 square feet is going to throw the whole thing out of kilter.
Other than retail, are there restaurants? I know there's Cafe Nero. Is there any other restaurants proposed in there?
Well, right now there's Summit in front.
Right.
And then in
Yeah.
terms of potential tenants, we've had restaurants reach out. We haven't gone that direction yet.
It's a little bit tricky bringing in another restaurant because you have the 2 restaurants there already.
Right.
So if you hurt the existing tenants by bringing in a 3rd, that's not such a great idea.
Right.
So plus, I think Corbin's going to have a lot of restaurants.
Yes,
So,
I agree.
and restaurants do require a lot of parking.
Yeah.
So.
Do you have that picture again of the copper on it? What the
material?
That's all right.
Yeah,
I got it right here.
oh, yeah, okay.
I'd also like to go back to, I think I heard a comment earlier about the cornices and the detailing and how it lends for the back to the southern versus northern facade. Do you guys have any more thoughts about that?
I like the
Simplicity.
I like the simplicity, yes.
Yeah, but when you look at it from the back, it is kind of 2 very separate elevations, and what Posh has already done kind of breaks that
With the vertical element.
from kind of what the detailing is on the south facade versus what is proposed here. So.
One item on this facade that's strange to me, but honestly, I think if you remove them, it might look more strange, is the awnings on the upper residential windows.
Right.
We looked at it with no awnings, with awnings, and then
Yeah.
what we had awnings on these windows, and we said, there's too many awnings.
Yeah.
So we just put it on these windows, which are very large.
We made these windows a little taller too.
So,
Yeah. It suggests that it's a retail space or like a double height, but then if you remove them, you're gonna have a pretty large white blank area up there.
Did you try
Nice,
them
it
with
breaks
just?
it up.
What goes into that, I'm not reading that right, is that posh or are those bedrooms?
These are units.
Those are
This
living
is
rooms,
this
okay.
one unit
Right.
on this side and one unit
Right.
on this side, and that's like the living area.
Right.
Is there any possibility that a small office might go up there?
maybe, I don't know, if- I
Not
think,
opposed
I
to
don't
it.
know, if I don't know if we're allowed. I think we're allowed, I have an office up there, CBD.
It would be subject to the planning and zoning commission's approval, obviously.
Like an accountant
Yeah,
or
more
something,
parking spaces.
they have some of those on the second floor.
It's facing north, it could be
I-
an artist's studio.
Yeah.
I mean, it could be pretty great.
I just assumed that there's so much vacancy with office today that I just assumed that probably would apply. Plus, I think there's gonna be some office built with Corbin.
Oh, yeah.
Did you try just the double hung in those two locations instead of floor to ceiling? Still on like the white background?
I mean, just take this top part off and just have the brick with the double hungs.
No, I kind of like the bump out, just having the same double hung at these two, these two units instead of the floor to ceiling, just because it might mean you wouldn't need the awning over it to kind of define what it is. I don't know, it's just a thought, because I agree, it kind of, from the
Yeah.
exterior, kind of feels more like a retail space looking at it from the outside.
Yeah.
You can still keep the bump out, still keep the white,
Mhm.
I think facade and element there, but.
Yeah, we can try that, the double, and remove the awning. I mean, we did try it without the awning, we did put the doubles in there.
I think,
Yeah.
maybe the window, it's just the size of the window.
Yeah,
Those two windows are too large.
Yeah, one of the challenges here was our engineer, DeSalvo, when he surveyed the building on a preliminary basis, he believes there's a big truss in here which spans the 50-foot, 52-foot theater in there. That's why this ceiling has a lot of depth to it. So that was one of the challenges why we tried to play around with this cornice and fill the gap in there. From this band here up, we believe there's either a wood truss built in the 20s or a metal truss.
He's got a big steel beam down the middle.
It'd be nice to have those great big windows. if you
Yeah.
were
Yeah.
inside there.
But these are in living rooms in the units as well.
Yeah.
Inside maybe,
Yeah.
I mean, even the double's a good sized window. Even the double's a big window. But we also tried this lower without this, but we liked the
I
break.
think it's interesting.
And it just looked, it felt like it fit overall with the building better if we pulled it all the way up to align with the cornice.
You mentioned casement windows. Are there casement windows?
Well,
They
one of
were
the,
in something I read. It
it's
mentioned-
egress, in the bedrooms. Double hungs, you don't have the same egress capability.
Right.
So they can actually make casement windows that look like a double hung.
Oh, that's.
So that's.
Oh, so some of those are?
Yeah,
On
the
the
ones in
sides.
the bedrooms would have to be,
Okay.
yeah.
For fire.
Do you have, cut sheets for the lighting, the light sconces?
Well, we haven't picked the light fixtures yet, but, what's that company, in New Orleans?
Bello, B-E-L.
Bavolo.
Buffalo.
You know, that's what we've done in the past buildings, handmade copper,
It's very
fixtures.
similar to 1020, very similar to 1950, 1958, as well as 364. A lot of Penny's buildings were done with similar, it's the same manufacturer, I think.
Yeah, but they're
But are
very
they
high.
gas or are they?
Stairway.
They can do
Spotlight.
light LED or gas, and But they're handmade and they're actual copper. There's not a finish on them. They bronze.
Bronze.
We weren't gonna do, we've done gas in the past, we weren't gonna do gas here because I'm not sure how you're gonna get it to the fixture without ripping up, the brick, so.
I don't really think it's advantageous, I hate to say it, but the gas in. Yeah, that's right.
A little bit of a ways.
Yeah, well,
That doesn't bring much light in, that's one of the other issues.
no, it's true.
And it is very dark back there today, so that's one of the things we have to, we need more light.
Could you paint that stairway box bronze color,
Yeah,
somehow
I
make it
was
disappear?
thinking that too. I think we may try
Well,
try that and
Well,
windows.
Let me ask you a different question. What would you think if we were to paint the posh entrance in a bronze color as opposed to the white?
Can you show a picture of that?
Show me the bronze, the punch entrance again.
Yeah.
That's on your.
On the back.
I don't know if the tenant would like it so much.
Yeah.
It's a pretty strong.
Also other elements
is
of the
it?
building, maybe to see it's full.
So-
That's
so
interesting,
much
you guys keep coming here.
Over there.
I think maybe that's why I'm not as bothered by it.
Yeah.
The
I
white
mean-
compounds everywhere.
Most people would think to paint that almost black. But that might be too contemporary for
Yeah,
what
because
we're
your
trying to do.
storefronts are white.
I was gonna ask you, talking about Verizon, and is there anything that's gonna relate? I think that was a nice addition, the Verizon.
Oh,
It's hung out in the front.
Right.
Oh, they did a beautiful job. with that
And
dome.
so I was wondering if you were gonna do anything that would kind of relate in a way to that, and maybe the bronze on the.
Well, that's where we came up with the awnings.
Yeah, the
Is-
copper.
Was the
Wood.
cop, was the, because remember, that started out as very copper colored and now it's turned kind of a bronzy color. That's, with the, with just the weather.
But the contemporary, aspect of it.
You mean the doors with like no lines, right?
Yeah,
No trim,
I mean,
like
just
all,
Are you seeing the
Kind
all
of a-
glass?
the all glass, yeah.
I don't mean that you would have to do that, but just
So,
that you might.
It's funny, we went back and forth about that a lot too, because the doors adjacent to it are very
This one.
traditional.
I
So
like
my-
the mix of that.
my
I like
question
the mix.
here was if
Yeah.
this were to be bronze colored or black,
Would that do the trick, maybe, something that we're,
You know,
What,
it
is that the
doesn't,
punch?
it doesn't look exactly like, there's glass there, so
There's a lot
it
of
doesn't
glass.
read
Yeah,
as
okay.
bulky.
it doesn't read as bulky, you're
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
And I think
Thing.
it almost kind of balances out a little bit, your new, bump out white element, at the back of the building now. So it's kind of the transition from the front. Posh is there, and it's kind of presents this new
Yeah, I
architectural
kept thinking
style.
if once you go sort of white, it's kind of hard to put a lot of other colors in the building.
Just one last comment, it's just, don't really have a decision either way, but just how, those 12 or so copper awnings work with everything else around it, which is all fabric. I mean, I think it would be, cool. I like relating copper awning to the copper dome in front, but we obviously have pretty much all copper awnings in town. I'm just trying to visually think about how it actually looks in person, with all those being a rigid, copper awning on each of the.
I like them, it unifies this.
Did you, I like
place
it rather
though.
than everybody having your own thing. Not that they would do that necessarily, but
I would not like that, yeah.
no, I like the consistency.
Well, we could potentially, if it's two tenants, for example, and there's just glass windows in the middle, could take the awning off that and just keep them over the doors.
I think it's pretty classic with.
Yeah, I mean,
with
it's
the-
nice,
with
it's
the
a nice
copper.
system, with the,
Very
Pretty
pretty.
classic.
How far do they project
I think it was 2'8".
to? So it provides some shelter.
Mhm.
Over the doors. I think it's a very nice design.
I do too.
I think you guys did a really good job of bringing in the elements of other parts of the building, bring it collectively without replicating.
Right,
I think that's a hard challenge.
yeah.
So there's consistency. That would repetition.
Yeah, and it's nice to see attention coming to the back of the building. I've looked at that face a million times, so.
You know, speaking of that, you guys didn't address the eastern facade at all, and you made some, I feel like, some positive changes there.
Yeah, you might want
Do you
to
want to address that at all?
That was,
Go back to the top of
Yeah,
the
we
stairwell.
have, you know, CST over here, electrical room doors, and exit door is what's,
I love the shape of those rooms, that bow, I think that,
yeah, the
they're
bow's nice.
interesting inside.
Yeah. Yeah.
What year is the building built?
1926.
Yeah. That's what
that one's, that's west. So these are just like big steel doors here and here.
Yeah.
So, this is already existing. These windows today don't exist. They're gonna be,
Right.
this is gonna be that door to get to the roof.
You can see up top.
Yeah, here's the
That's what's
existing.
up top.
Right.
It's got the before and after.
So we want to do new, you know, painted panel doors over here, and try and do surrounds just to give them a little detail. I know we have that gas work and that equipment on the wall there.
Yeah, that's gotta stay there. Can't really do anything with that.
Cover up some of the yellow.
Right, right.
Where are these two doors lead, these two lonely little doors down there? What do those lead into?
Let's see.
That storage or
The
whatever?
entrance is into Cafe Nero's back space.
Backspace, that's what I thought, okay.
We have one CST and one
Cafe Nero.
Cafe Nero, yeah.
That's where they take their supplies in through.
Can those be jazzed up at all?
Let's see one
Not
more.
look quite so lonely.
I think you jazzed
This one's actually, it's like that today, I think.
Yeah, it is.
So it's just that
It's just this one.
Could we dummy that into something else?
Got some kind of raised panel on
Yeah.
there.
I mean, it's a small detail, but it
Mhm.
looks kind of lost then.
You guys, also looking at the side, a couple comments about the new stair set enclosure. How do you guys think about that now, seeing the building as a whole, seeing how it related to Posh on the other side? Did that pop out? Do you guys still mind the all-white panel enclosure?
I'd like to think about that in bronze or somehow make it disappear a little bit. I don't know if bronze is the right color, but
What's the dimensions of it? How many feet
It
does it
bumps
stick
out.
out?
Well, one thing is we wanted to hold it back. You know, you never really see it like this because you're down here and there's a little
True,
parapet. But
true.
but we didn't want it to come out to the face, so we pushed it back. It comes out from the brick maybe 4 feet, 4.5 feet, and then it's about 19 feet long.
it's not insignificant.
Here's the kind of perspective view again.
What about making it brick and aligning it with the soldier course of brick and terminating it simply? I don't know.
Just the structural
issue, John.
Yeah,
Holding up that
because
brick.
that's would be sitting on top of a second floor. I mean, this is a, be sitting, the brick would be sitting on top of this. I mean, I don't know how you'd support it.
We'll have to wait.
And it's matching over it too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You could
that's the other thing,
use-
is matching it could get
You could use
tricky,
thin
too.
brick,
Mhm.
with that, but I think somebody suggested maybe a window.
Yeah, I think we could try windows in there.
That would help break it up, a couple of windows.
Yeah.
The stairwell might like a window.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it'd be nice
Yeah,
to
it
light
doesn't
the
have to be
stairwell.
dark.
That's a good idea.
I think the windows would make it.
I think so.
It makes, I'm sure there's some sort of a window that would be
Yeah.
kind of interesting looking.
The other thing is that the height, if the height is able to be reduced, you're just gonna see it less
Yeah.
from pedestrian view.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's a way to bring it down if you're at your head height and.
Yeah, well, I mean, see that window there,
Mm-hmm.
you know, you could probably bring it down a foot or so. Still need some structure.
Yeah.
We could probably lower it a little bit too.
To line up with that, brick
Yeah.
coursing. So I may have missed this part, but so posh, well, whatever it's called, but that aspect of the building remains the same? It's not clear to me from that drawing, but.
Yeah, I
that
mean,
rendering.
that is kind of from
This
Posh towards the rear is where we are been working on.
Behind
this.
Posh.
Right, behind Posh.
So from,
So, right.
from that, your drawing.
Yeah, from that edge.
To the post road is remaining the same.
Yes.
Ah, okay. So for that reason, then it seems as though the white Posh, it does relate to the white of your storefronts and the white of Sina.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
So that's the way I think the windows is a good suggestion.
I have another question. I've not studied the floor plan, but where is the entrance for the units upstairs? And is there, I assume there's an elevator?
Yeah, don't leave. Okay. These two windows are here today, which is part of the theater. This is that lamp we were talking about replacing, but you have the doors for, the elevator lobby door is here,
Okay,
okay? And then the staircase, then we have to have two egress to the second floor. The staircase is here going up to the second floor.
okay, okay. So there's not really any kind of gracious entrance, it's just stairway going up?
Well, we have the stairway and then an elevator as
Yeah,
well,
okay.
but they can't, by code, they can't actually connect.
No, I
So-
understand that. I
So
get
we,
that.
so that's why they're separate,
Okay.
so. We'd like them to be like one, where you go in the elevator lobby, take the stairs, and take the elevator,
Right,
but
but
you
you
can't,
can't do that.
we're not allowed to do
Yeah, I
that.
understand that, okay.
Can you not do that?
No, we learned it on two buildings that we built, and we wanted them, and they told us we couldn't do it, so.
And so there would be some residential signage or address eventually that you'll.
Yeah, we have, this lobby is ridiculously large, so.
Elevator lobby portion.
Right, so we're kind of trying to figure out if maybe that becomes, maybe even a mail room for the whole building, I'm not really sure.
Does the elevator accommodate furniture to get
Yeah, but
upstairs, or is there a
the,
freight elevator somewhere?
well, it's only a single story. We could take some of the furniture up the elevator, but our other buildings have been making use of stairs, because the stairways are wide enough.
Okay,
So,
okay.
and it's a straight shot up, there's
Yeah.
no turn, it just goes straight
Right,
up.
no, I just wondered how you got things up there.
So, and again, they're small units, so, you know, the average size is around 650 square feet, so it's not gonna be that much in the way of
Right.
furniture. I think there's one that's a little larger than that.
875 square
Yeah,
feet.
that's the largest one.
Anything else, guys?
I think it looks great.
Are you providing the window treatments for those two large windows?
We put all the window treatments in all of our apartments and then if they want
So
to
they
put,
all look the same.
so they all look the same from
That's
the road.
nice.
Otherwise, it just doesn't.
Right.
Right.
It's important.
So,
We have, my father and I have an interest in what's going on in the front of the building because the window treatments are all different right now. So it's, how do we
Yeah.
unify the
Exactly.
building actually?
Posh, if you look over the Posh door, there's window treatments that are up there that we want to get rid of, but they'll let us do it. So,
I think that's very important.
This is great, guys. This is a really nice presentation, very nice presentation. So I think there's a couple small things to maybe tweak and come back. I think you have a pretty favorable report right now, but maybe we could see one final rendition that talks about kind of the stairway we talked about.
Lighting and landscaping.
Yeah, it was as part of that,
Which
bring
we
a
have to do anyway
lighting
for
and
zoning.
landscaping plan. I don't know how close you guys are on that, or,
We're planning on submitting for the February submission for the P and Z meeting, so that'll be, should be
Yeah.
ready
okay,
for that.
yeah.
that would be great to see. And by the way, part of that lighting plan, on that eastern facade where CST is, we talked about this before, there's some awful lights that are still existing there.
Oh, yeah.
that bothered us the first time, that still are there,
On the wall?
on the
or-
wall.
They were
um,
tiny little.
Yeah,
The only
yeah,
lights that are even close to being nice on the perimeter of the building
yeah.
are near Cafe Nero.
Yeah.
The rest of them are pretty horrible.
It's like, yeah, it's, this kind of, these, yeah,
Those little guys.
To the rear of
Interesting.
Cafe Nero.
yeah, the side
Because
door, Cafe
Nero's all
Nero.
brand new.
Yeah, the side door.
You don't want to break that door?
There's some stuff, it just,
Pretty little lamps.
they
yeah.
never got
Oh,
addressed
that,
when the
yeah,
new.
that's in the back, yeah.
Yeah,
You got this
Side.
little archway here, but Cafe Nero's, that's their ornament here.
yeah.
Yeah, that's a real door, I can see somebody going in.
All right,
So
Alright.
landscape design actually is part of the ARB. I didn't know that it was.
yeah, we
Okay.
do look at landscape plans. Mhm.
Okay. I do have a question, which is, the Playhouse has the sign, it's already there. I assume that we can put whoever's in the back, the tenants on that, redo the sign to reflect the tenants are in the back of the building.
All right, can you pull that sign up? Oh, there it is, yeah.
That's a Dave question. What
Yeah.
do they do with that in the new regs, Dave? Because the signage has to be on the part of the building that's occupied by the business that the
But
sign is for.
You guys approved that sign.
Yeah, it was a
as part of us.
it was a
I
special
remember there was
approval.
there was a,
You'll see how that works
Well-
out under the new regs.
Yeah, I mean, it was confusing, we went about this a bunch, it was confusing with like the old theater building there, and we still liked the name of the Playhouse being like, being kept there and the memory of that, so we didn't want to eliminate it, so,
that's what we call the Darien Place.
yeah, yeah. So, I mean, I don't want to speak for the board, I mean, would we be open to seeing a whole new sort of stand-up sign, or like,
What about do you mean like the little sign where it says what movies are coming?
yeah, like
Yes.
this one here, this little guy, sorry.
In the corner.
Okay.
It was like a
That
stand, like a
was,
little
that was in the
monumental,
last, did you approve that in the last 2 years?
yeah,
Okay, so we wanted to keep it, we
Okay.
just want to redo it,
Yeah.
just reface it
All right.
somehow.
yeah.
We don't want to make it any bigger, we just want to reface it.
Do you want to bring that with your presentation of how it's set up and have like
No, we're
fake?
so early with that.
Okay, all right.
I just figured we'll come back.
Yeah, I mean, if you guys
Well,
found
maybe
it.
something generic,
Yeah,
because you're not gonna,
Yeah.
you're gonna see it when the tenant comes in.
Playhouse?
Okay.
yeah. I mean, I actually never found out if it was a
It's gonna stay
successful
there, I
sign
think.
for Posh, so I don't know what the tenants thought about it. We never heard feedback after it left here.
Feedback on which.
I think it was smashed in
On
last
the-
month.
On the sign, like,
Yes.
There-
like if you got that mention, like if
Yeah,
people
it was
walk by,
defamed
oh,
in some way
Let
last
me-
month.
Let me
Oh,
ask, I should
dear.
ask Dave this question. There used to be, the tenant told us, Senna told us that they had an attachment to that placard in front that said Senna. And they said that came down and they don't know where it went and it's gone. And I thought maybe it was a violation or something and they had to take it down. I have no idea.
Underneath the
Underneath-
sign over the door?
No, the sign that said the movies right? On the bottom of that someplace, it says
Yeah, like
seven.
hanging off the
Yeah,
bottom.
hanging
It
off.
was hanging off the bottom.
I don't remember that.
Let's see if there's one.
I don't remember it either,
I don't
but they
remember
said
if they
that there was a
were-
sign that was disappeared, they don't know where it went, and they want their sign back.
I don't remember approving,
I
yeah.
didn't
The
take
sign
it.
isn't.
I thought maybe it could have been a,
It was
violation or
It
something.
was only for the movie. I don't think we ever approved a sign.
Maybe that's why.
For the movie and for Posh.
Right.
Right.
Would you be keeping the Darien Theater sign, the original?
On the front of the building?
Yeah,
The Playhouse?
And The concrete one, that's part of the
the
wall.
concrete one.
We hadn't thought about changing it, to be
Yeah.
honest.
Good.
I think it's
should
nice.
stay.
Yeah.
But
That's false advertising if the Playhouse isn't.
It is that confusing to people?
Well, it's like,
No.
No, I love that.
No, I love it too, but I just wondered.
Well, it wasn't, we weren't
We
planning.
weren't thinking to take
We
it
weren't
out.
thinking.
Yeah,
Right.
okay,
Yeah.
good. No, it's a nice historic piece,
It is a.
as long as people don't drive around in circles trying to find it.
no, now they've got Verizon.
There is one.
No, that's a problem. Okay, so I'll send you a letter, but do you guys, you have a note of the
Yeah.
tweaks and stuff?
Yeah,
Like, I'll
yeah, been
recap them in
taking
the letter.
notes.
So
And
it's
then-
basically landscape lighting and a couple of tweaks.
Couple tweaks, yeah.
And
if you want-
landscape plan.
Yeah, I said, yeah, I said that, yep, thank you.
We don't
Not
have to worry about
just
signage yet.
No, but if you do want to bring an option of that, I mean, that sign was specific to working for the movie theater and allowing people to see from the
What's
road what would be in the back.
Back of the building. That's what we wanted to reuse it for
Yeah.
the same thing.
Right.
There's a bunch of variances in the building for various things. Signage is one of them.
Yeah. Well, we've used Kevin Kane in the past from Hungwell.
Yeah.
He's presented to you guys a million times,
Right.
other signs.
You hit all your roost stuff, right? The roost and.
Right, but he's done a lot of signs in town,
Yeah.
so we'll probably talk to him about how we can
Kitchen.
repurpose that sign.
Talking about that,
if
but
you want to bring the residential sign in the back at the same time.
I don't know if it's in flux, whether it's a back.
That's a good
And we'll probably just put something over the door. Just to be pretty nondescript.
We had one of his
I'd
trucks.
rather not,
He
rather not draw attention to it.
Yeah.
You think there is?
No,
We didn't want it.
Okay.
I remember there was a little bump.
Okay.
Yeah, I know, but
great.
some people might take it.
Imagine what
All right, any questions for us, anything? No?
When is your next meeting?
I can tell you the exact date. February, we did not move it. Yeah, we not moved it because of the spring break. So if you're thinking about going on spring break, too bad. I have kids, I'm not. It's the 18th, yeah,
February 18th.
February 18th, so materials would need to be into Dave by the 11th.
11th of February.
Thank you, you did a great job.
Thanks.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right.
I know we had a
Okay, guys,
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
thank you.
Nice presentation.
Do you guys wanna keep that board, or?
You guys, did you take notes?
I took a picture of it.
Oh, good.
Yeah, let me
Okay,
take
good.
it back.
I think I wrote down all this stuff. Oh, I like to see it. Okay, yeah. Bring the next one of those another time. Oh, for another. Okay.
I got your picture.
Okay. Oh, good to see you. That's amazing. I gotta ask when I see you.
No.
The guy I work with, I thought you would overlap. Yeah.
Nope.
Thanks.
Happy New Year, everybody.
Okay, guys, continuing on, I've kept it on the agenda just in case we want to talk about, but the village districts updates, that is moving along. I don't really have an update for you guys. I'm in the process of writing, regulations and descriptions with, planning and zoning. So, as that continues, I'll let you guys know.
And you and Marion are working on the design standards,
We're working on the design
and we're
standards.
working on the regulatory part of the language to put in the regulations,
Yes,
and also on the draft maps of the different historic
zones.
villages that could be created, and will eventually give you kind of a draft, and I envisioned it that would say, okay, here's the solid line that we envision being that village area, and here's a dash line of other properties that may want to include. Go out and take a look at them and see what you think, and is the dash line, should it be included, should it not be, are there more properties, and that kind of thing. So that'll be a, go out and take a look at the sites as much as look at the paper.
How many districts are there, are you contemplating, or have been contemplated, or?
Well, I mean, technically, I wasn't gonna tell you guys, but I actually went out with Rita and Mary, and we spent a whole day actually going around different sites, and we focused on 3 different ones, the Mather Four Corners, and Prospect Avenue, and then the Historic District downtown. So we just thought we'd start with those 3, and then put together the design detailings for those and what kind of characteristics are common among common elements in those areas, and then
That's what the design standards are, is coming up with.
yeah, that's what, yeah, well, that's Rita and Mary, that's there's, I mean, this is Rita's bread and butter, so she was so helpful going around and kind of characterizing these things. So we're trying to put those, so to answer your question, those 3 zones that we're talking
Okay.
with, and then we'll give those to Dave's team to do the regulations for them. But then in the end, the more we've talked about it, if it's something that's like well received by the town, there's a ton of other areas that could be great.
The Rings End area, is that
Yeah.
considered one?
Yeah, I took out Rings End, yeah, and the road down there. 5 Mile back in the day would have been a wonderful one. Middlesex Road's got some classic houses on it that are starting to be chipped away at one by one. And then there's a couple off-site stuffs like the Pond Weed House, which is like the oldest house in town. It's about to be sold, possibly wrecked. It's a big talk right now on the historical side. If you guys are familiar, it's at the end of the post road before you go into Stanford. It's this classic old house.
Oh, it's vacant, isn't it?
Yeah.
On the
guy-
Post Road?
Yes,
Just
you
past
go
the
down.
Y on
I've
your
been by it
right.
1,000 times.
You have, yeah.
Mhm.
Near
Past the
Giovanni's?
Before that.
Before the
Before.
Y. Okay. Is it
On-
before the Y?
After
Left
the
up
Y.
on the right-hand side.
Just
on the right-hand-
after,
Yes, I know.
Before we
Yeah.
get to Hollow Tree.
Hollow
Yes.
Tree.
Right.
Beautiful house.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that could be one. So anyways, but technically just working on 3 right now. And Dave and his guys are like, they've been doing a lot of good stuff, working on the actual regulations.
Rings End would be a good one.
Mhm.
Yeah, that would be
Such a special, the bridge and such a special area down there.
So,
Yeah, so we'll work on the 3 most prominent ones first, and then, as you say, depending on how it's received by the community, then we might go for more. But we need to get the first
there
3
you go. You show
on the
the-
books first.
you show everybody that, but that's the house, that's the Pond Weed House.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
That's a classic.
It's on the Stamford side
Right.
of Hollow Tree Ridge Road,
Yeah.
on the Boston Post Road.
And who owns it? The town?
No, the town doesn't own it.
It's a
privately
private
owned.
guy, and he was into puppeteering or something privately back in the day, and so he, in his will, had no children, and he left it apparently to this famous puppeteer or something who lives in New Jersey. So this guy has no relation to him, so he just basically wants to get rid of it. I mean, he has no, so he's just willing to kind of sell it and be done with it. So the Historical Society is trying to figure out a way to like abate him from selling it right away.
When was that built? How old is that?
1700s,
It looks, I know, it looks
It's one of the, it's the oldest house in town.
really old.
Yeah.
It
Rita, do
does
you
look
know?
really old.
Yeah, when you drive by, yeah, it looks haunted.
I think it's the oldest.
In a good way.
It's the oldest.
In a good way.
Right.
Or Boo
I mean, the
Radley
roof
would
is
say
actually in
somebody.
good shape, it's probably like very good quality.
I don't think it's in very good shape.
No, it's probably not, but it doesn't, well, I don't know, it doesn't look moldy, yeah.
So that's the update there.
Great.
Okay, that's it. Approval of minutes. Did you guys,
Great.
anybody read? Okay, good. All approved?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Any other business anyone to talk about?
What's happening with Tucker Chase? Is he coming back?
I'm sorry, what's happening with what?
Tucker
With
Chase?
Paris Cafe.
George, who is the person that will be building the facility, was ill last month, if you recall, and apparently one of his children is very ill today. So he called in the middle of the afternoon and said, I'm just not going to be able to make it. Can we postpone it until February? And the answer was, of course.
Yeah.
And he's the one that has the materials, and apparently Tucker Chase didn't have the materials from George, so there's no sense in Tucker
Yeah.
being here. So So February, we'll look at the time when we discuss that.
Just had a brilliant question that went right out of my head.
How's Corbin
It'll
doing?
come back.
How's the Corbin project?
Yes, we're on David.
I haven't seen anything about that project in a couple of months now. And I think it's the same story that we had for people
Well, you should have it.
for the
She
Federal
works with
Realty
them.
project and for the Norton Heights Shopping Center. Once the
Yes.
town approves it, there's 1,000 details that they have to take care of. And they've gone from, they've tackled 500 details and they're working on the next 100.
So
It's
they will
interesting to
come-
see a Heights area being bombed.
Exciting.
We like to think of it as creative reconstruction.
Yeah, I'm sorry, bombed is gone.
Yes, but they have started doing the demolition work
Yeah.
and started doing some of the utility work already. Stop and Shop is out. The building permit for the new Walgreens building will probably be issued within the next couple of weeks. And it'll take about a year, maybe a little bit more, for that building to be built.
Where's the
And
new
then
building?
Walgreens moves into that new building.
Where's that?
The new Walgreens building is just to the right of the existing Walgreens.
Towards Equinox. Wow.
Yeah, so
Yeah, between
what's
Walgreens.
there, so 2 years, 18 months before all of that is back together, or?
Probably year to a year and a half for the new Walgreens building, and then another year for the rest of the project.
Do we know
But-
what's going into, like Glen Liquor and all of those, that
That's a
whole?
parking
Well,
lot.
that's
Personalized.
the Norton Heights Shopping Center, which is different
Oh,
from
that's
Federal
different.
Realty. Right.
Yeah, of course,
Uh-huh.
okay. Do we know what's going in there? I
No,
mean, they're starting
no,
to,
not the specific tenants
okay,
or
they're
anything.
starting to bulldoze those too.
Yeah, I'm surprised. I thought they were on hold, but then they started seeing some action this week with
Yeah.
bulldozers. I thought they hadn't gotten approval from you guys. Or stuck in some sort of financing. Palmer's people.
Again, there's 1,000 details for them to take
They got
care
their
of.
financing.
And even though they're ready to go, there's some
Yeah.
other detail that comes in
Yeah.
the way sometimes.
Huh.
But I believe they're working on the demolition permits for those two buildings.
Sure.
And even if they take down one of the buildings or part of the building first, over in the Right and Right Shopping Center, trying to think if there was any holdup from our end, and I can't think of anything that we're holding them up on.
It's
So-
exciting.
Just to finish that thought, in the process of Corbin, after they finish their 1,000 details, they're going to come back to the ARB, because we really only saw like schematics. We never really saw like
Final
a
proposal.
design
Yeah.
from David. I mean, I just wondered whether they were
Um,
going to come back.
Actually, I thought there were very specific plans that
They
had
were?
been reviewed and approved for
Oh.
the
But-
original, well, the main block that goes from the Bank of America building to Corbin, and there's
Mm-hmm.
the 5 buildings in that. And then they came in later on for the buildings across Corbin Drive, which include the gas station site down to Old Kings
Tibbetts.
Highway South. And I thought there were very specific plans for
They
each
were?
of those.
Oh, so much better.
I think,
Maybe it
I
wasn't
think
here
none
for-
of the signage has been addressed, so that'll all have to be figured out.
I'm sorry, that
I don't think the signage, tenant signage,
Oh,
anything
none
like
of
that.
that.
Yeah, yeah,
details didn't work out.
yeah.
How about the senior housing, when is that gonna be projected to be done? It looks like it's coming along pretty quickly. As
Which one?
opposed to the senior.
It's massive.
Near the Starbucks.
yeah.
It's big, big.
The Royal,
remember
it's called now.
The
Royal.
Yeah. For the old Royal School.
Oh, of
That
course.
old town hall building
Was the Royal.
That was Royal School.
was called, that was the original
Original.
Royal School.
Huh.
But yes, it's moving on very
Lived here a
quickly.
long time. Remember that.
And of course, what we've seen has been a long time to get the foundation in place.
Mm-hmm.
And then, once that's in place, it's very quick to build the
Build
shell.
Yeah.
And now it'll be a long time to do the many details on the interior spaces and things, but yes, it is moving
Pretty
on quickly.
quickly though now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
And those little houses look nice by there. That were redone.
they
Yes,
do,
yeah.
they're
The little
very sweet.
historic one that
Right.
we approved, yeah.
They're very,
We were just
very
talking about
nice.
that one.
Well, I was very pleased about that.
Yeah.
Gee, I didn't remember the Barnes Hill.
All right, well, we can wrap it. It is 9:19 p.m. We can adjourn our meeting.
Thank you.
7:79, we're adjourned.
Adjourn.
Thanks, Dave.
Leslie, feel better.
I hope we don't get what you got.
I know, I'm
No
sorry.
offense.
No.
I had a flu shot today.
I did
Late.
too, which makes it worse.
Better late than never.
And mine yesterday.
Did you? I know, I said, am I really late? And he said, no, there's a whole new wave coming in.
No, use it.
But that stuff going on in China is
Oh,
very
it's scary.
scary.
It's very scary.
I forget what they call it. Coronavirus or
Corona.
Something like that. And they had their first case here. I heard that.
Here is in Darien or here is in the United States?
See if we can use all your weight. Okay.
So didn't President Trump
All right.
ban all travel from the African countries to the U.S. when there was the Ebola scare?
Yes.
So will he do the same from China?
China.
Is it okay?
Oh,
Stay
God,
out?
I want my husband home.
We'll have to come to Canada and then drive down.
I'll have to sneak in, come across the border.
And now they're realizing it can be human to human, not just
Yes, it's not.
exposure to the animal market. So that's the part.
Yeah, I think that was announced.
Amen.
That was announced today or yesterday that it's
Right.
human to human.
Not one of these? Did you
I
get one?
have two of them actually.
Dave, can I stop in tomorrow and get a packet of this, because I'd love to have this for my records.
You know,
since I-
Sure.
we did, and I
You've got
think he
extras?
doesn't do it. This fellow here, who did it
actually-
up by.
No, I want to take yours.
Well, yes,
You know, he
because
did that.
this is an extra
What
set.
is that?
But do you
Jim?
have more extra?
Orange
Oh, Orange
Factory?
Theory.
We have
Yeah,
the
yeah.
file copy, which is
The
all we need.
lights on
Okay,
that
all right, if
building,
you don't mind.
the lighting
I'd
at
really
night,
like
you
to
ever
have
go
it.
by at night?
I don't think I've seen it.
Probably
I
not.
think I've
Thank you
only
very
seen
much.
Good night,
No,
everyone.
dark.
Good night, let's go.
Dark.
Thank
Really?
you.
He
When
has
they're
those
due, I will call them
pictures
tomorrow
that
and
he
make sure.
drew on here.
Oh,
Yeah,
whatever
the
was
red
on
mailing
the
list.
vertical.
Yeah, I
They're
know.
not,
Did you
they're
get the
very
email or the
shallow,
agenda?
Yeah, yeah.
so they
Yeah.
don't,
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And it-
it's
okay.
dark.
I
That's
just didn't
surprising,
get my
because I know they
package.
Camera
have
scan
classes really
all of
early
the
in
stuff and
morning,
send it
and
to
They
then
do, a
electronic.
lot at night.
Yeah,
And then
Yeah.
put the
Yeah.
paper stuff in the mail.
Right. No, I got some of it. but I
Unless
just
they
didn't
go
get
in the
this.
back.
I just
Maybe
want
the
to
people
study
In the
that.
mail, in the,
Maybe they
Physical
don't
mail.
use that
Yeah.
front.
I'm not sure. I
so
see
you didn't get
people
a packet like everyone else
No.
in manila folder.
No.
They used to have.
And I
like
looked
that
quickly in the
Yeah.
mailbox and I saw
Yeah.
two manila folders. I thought, oh, good. Went back to get it yesterday and there were
I'll
other
have to go
things.
by.
Okay.
So,
I didn't wanna.
and then I didn't have time to stop by today.
Well, at least it wasn't that you were expecting a check and thought it was the check.
Yeah,
Those
no.
lights are.
And then it
That's
turned out
true.
not to be the
Yeah,
check, the bill
Yeah,
instead.
that's true.
Pretty,
Yeah.
but they don't.
It's
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's
they're
just
very
that,
nice.
these
They are
people-
pretty.
Yeah. But I did want to study this because I think this is a good project.
Oh,
project. I love this color.
These are.
So which movie star does she look like? Is it
Oh,
Anne
no,
Hathaway or Jennifer
Dan
Connelly?
Hathaway, well, either one. I just knew I was
Prince.
looking at this movie
Yeah,
star and
yeah.
I couldn't think of her name. And then when she came over to talk to me, I thought, oh my gosh, who is this movie star?
It's Anne Hathaway.
We're still
Thinking about that.
I feel great about this. I feel like Anne Hathaway. And my son was looking at me like, what do you, he could have said.
I don't know, she's just a random idea.
You know everybody, you know all these beautiful people, but I couldn't think of her name. So out of, just,
Well, you know, when things are out of context.
out of context, yeah. And you
Yeah.
had, but and you had your
I
kids with you.
Yeah, I know, darling.
It's like
Climbing all over me. No, you're reminding me
It's so hard
that
out
that
of
was.
context.
It is.
Right.
It
It's
is.
like, I even saw, we had a Halloween party together and and Kate was dressed up. And I was like you're so familiar with who I don't invite you. I was like, come to the party. Like,
Yeah, I know.
who are you?
Like,
Like,
I don't know who that
it was
is.
so
You look
confusing.
familiar.
Yeah.
I've had that happen before, just completely out of context, and somebody calling me by name, and I think, oh my gosh, I'm
Yeah.
senile.
Yes.
Good meeting, I love that project.
Yeah, it's nice. They did a pretty good
Glad
job.
they did it,
They were
yeah.
very respectful, like careful presenters too, which I
Yes,
feel like
yeah.
they were good, you know.
They've had such successful projects.
Yeah, they have, I love the one, I did, I saw, a friend of mine, daughter moved into, long story, moved into her house, the family home, and then she and her husband moved down to one of.
Yeah, but
Yeah, yeah.
we talked about, yeah.
Oh,
Okay,
right,
we
we
talked
talked
this
about
about one of the ones for you.